Hey everybody, welcome back to Gun Tote Minnesota. My name is Andrew, and I have for you here today the Ruger PC carbine. And on the end is an anechoic 35 can. I've got an Olight setup, and this is the most exciting part of all of it. This is the new Zerotech Thrive HD, and this is a variable Prism optic. I'm gonna gas it up. I've got some targets at 35 yards, and I'm gonna hit a few of them, and we'll come back and talk about it. Still holding the zero. I really like the ability to run it on this carbine stock. I can get these really close and tight. Can make a very compact package considering this is a rifle and I am running a can on it. I bring my shoulder piece in quite a bit. I get a really good eye picture with that eye relief. Out of ammo. With that eye relief, I can be pretty comfortable on something like this carbine length where I can scooch it up just a touch. And then with a normal flat top receiver on an AR, I can get even closer to my eye. With a PC carbine, it does have a little standoff room, but I just tuck it in a bit closer. And like I said, it helps with the overall package, keeps it a little tighter for closer maneuverability is probably what I would say. And I can run it on 1 power there too. I'm gonna run on 1 power and come back and talk about 1 power some more. Okay, I really like that 1 power. I would say there's minimal distortion. They optimized this LPVO towards the 4 power. With big heavy optics, sometimes the optimization is towards the middle range of power for a number of variables and usage. I would say for this one, 4 power is really, really good and 1 power is not too bad. I notice very minimal distortions on 1 power. I think if you're gonna shoot at like 10 yards, you'll notice it more than you would at 30 or 40 or 50 yards, which most people, because it's a prismatic and it does have the ability to run some magnification, I would assume they're shooting these a bit further. But if you need something to run with 1 power, I think this can do the trick, and it actually alleviates the temptation for me personally to run a red dot. I don't feel the need to run a red dot on this system, whether it be a side mounted red dot or top mounted. That's just not interesting to me with a 1:4. With a 1:4, I feel competent with that reticle. The fact that the illumination is good enough. Like right now, slightly overcast, but that illumination is enough with my sunglasses on, the darkening of that. It still contrasts really nicely. And I'm making all my hits on 4-inch plates at 30 yards repeatedly with this thing, just freestanding. That's kind of a standard for me. I want to know, can I do that pretty quickly over and over? Is it repeatable? And it looks like it is with that reticle. So it's a good reticle for quick shooting for me, as well as the fact that on this 9mm, it has enough when I'm on 4 power that I can use that Stadia and I can shoot this out to 200 yards pretty reliably. Now with 5.56 guns or 300 blackout, I found that about 330 yards was the furthest I could run with this particular reticle. So that just makes it an extremely practical, functional optic and reticle combination. I think the price point is very, very good, and these are fun. Here's the optic. On the right side, you're gonna have your illumination battery housing. So that's the slot that you can take off for the illumination battery. Runs on a standard battery, and I'm happy to see that. This and this would be your elevation and your windage, and you can see that they have an integral piece for adjustments. So you don't have to go out and get a screwdriver or a coin from the car. You can just use the actual housing, which I think is really wise, and I always appreciate seeing that. Anything to make the range experience and zeroing more easy or more simple is a win in my book. Here's the part that is most interesting to people. This is the front end, and on the objective, I'm on 4 power right now. You can see that we go from 1 to 4 power. Really cool, very smooth. The dial has a texture, the knob has a texture. and the throw from 1 to 4 power is not terrible. The knob itself is useful, and I would say it's needed if you want to do it quickly. So I tend not to grab it like this. I usually grab that little fin or cattail, magnification assist lever, whatever you want to call it, and that's what makes an easy throw for me. I zero it on 4 power so that the reticle stadia are true and I can get my data that way. But when I'm shooting close, obviously I'm shooting on 1 or 1.5 power, and I find that it's a pretty reasonable 1 power. Obviously with prismatics, you're going to need to be a little bit closer to your optic for proper eye relief. That's just the nature of a prism optic. And on 1 power, I'm just trying to show you that on 1 power, yes, I can see my thumb when I run my pressure pad, I can see my light, but it doesn't actually obscure the target. It doesn't obscure my field of view very much. And to me, it's really not distracting because I'm used to looking through 1x prisms all the time, which Zerotech also makes a 1x prism worth looking at. Okay, from there, going to the other side, this is going to be another function set. So you have minus and plus for your illumination, and I would call this daylight bright. It's not, you know, it's not like gonna be quite red dot bright. That's my opinion about it. But I don't need that in a 1 to 4. I need a functional reticle, a tough optic, and a small footprint, which this provides really, really well. Moving on from there, this is a cool piece of ingenuity. That is a QD set, and it's a really well-designed QD set. You can see that on the hinge, you move back from there, there is a beveled release point with some grip on it. So when I want to release it, I press that grip back, I release the optic, press that forward, optic pops off. And actually the return to 0 is really good. Let me go ahead and throw this back on the gun, and I'll show you how to clip that down. It's a nice sturdy snap. I feel very confident in the machining of that. And I'll go ahead and hit those targets again just to show you that the 0 has not been lost. Correction, that one on the right, I think it's actually a 5-inch target, but either way, it's a reasonable size, smaller than a headshot target, and the other ones are probably headshot size. But that's the one I want to test against, and that's the one that I need to see consistency with. So I'll throw a handful more of these 165s down there, just kind of show you that the reticle can do it. Let's do it on 1 power. Catching some spalling back here. I think I'll move to the other targets for a second. Empty. Yeah, I like that reticle a lot. That's pretty reliable, man. I think that's a pretty good optic too. Sweet, kept 0 really, really well. The folks that I think would get the most out of this optic would be people who already appreciate smaller footprint, tactical style optics in general. I think they're gonna find this interesting. If you already like prisms, this is kind of the evolution of prisms in my opinion. Now you can have a prism, you can get that toughness, you can get that reticle that's really secure in the glass. You don't have to worry about turret operation and tracking and that sort of thing. You can rely on the reticle if you like doing that. Obviously there's an advantage here. And you have the advantage, once more, of having a 1 power on your prismatic. Now running a normal 1 power prismatic, like I said, Zerotech has some of those. If that's your dedicated thing, I would just go get a 1 power. My experience has been, I prefer on most guns, not all guns, but most guns, to have the 1 power or the 4 power, which is why very often I run things like the Zerotech the Vengeance 1 to 6. The 1 to 6 I would run with a red dot on top. Even though it's a 1 to 6, I like to leave it on 6 power and then run the red dot on top and piggyback it. With this one, because it's a quick throw and it's 1 to 4 power, if I plan on shooting or hunting really close or maybe doing competition shooting, I absolutely could see something like this being possible for 2-gun competitions where you're running PCCs, things like that. I'd probably just run it on 1 power for the day. Or if this is your home defense nightstand gun or whatever you're going to call it, please be safe with those systems and lock things up the way they should and make sure kids don't get access to them. But if that's going to be your nightstand gun, then I would say it would be easy to leave it on 1 power and leave the illumination on about mid-range, and that's enough for me when I'm running a light at the same time. I like that setup. I like that option that I can do that, and it's still really tough. It's a small footprint. It's not huge. Like if I run an LPVO on this is a takedown carbine, and it does interfere a little bit. It gets too close to my pressure pad. Same thing can be true with some of my ARs. So the advantage of this is it gives me a lot of real estate. I can still do other things up here that I need to, run my charging handle, and I have the option with a QD mount of throwing another optic on here anytime I feel like it, which is really neat. Of course, I can throw it up to 4 power and shoot pretty darn far. In my opinion, 200 yards with a 9mm carbine is pretty darn far, and I'm shooting subsonics typically, 147 grain subsonics. So I like the option, I like the reticle design. The center dot is a really important thing to me, and I can pick it up and distinguish it against other things, dark gray targets, black targets, paper. I've been able to run it with the light on and low light settings. I think it's a good design. The 4X is not so much that I'm gonna have issue with even a little bit closer ranges. I can run it at 50 yards on 4X, and field of view is sufficient. So that's an important part of a prismatic. What is the field of view like? And I would say it's sufficient considering the other options that you get with this and the variability of magnification by itself. Very often when I'm shooting this, if I'm on the PCC, I tend to leave it on 1 power for these kinds of distances because I like the field of view and I like the reticle. And because it's a second focal plane, I don't have to worry about that reticle changing in size or proportion. And then when I'm beyond that, especially with 300 blackout or ARs, I tend to run it on 4 power because I'm taking shots that are typically 50 to 500 yards, something like that. I did run this on my 300 blackout at 630 yards. I had to use a whole lot of holdover, and the reticle was just not going to meet me there. But at 330 yards, it was still very functional, and I found it to be great on both calibers and gas guns. I actually think in a few months, the next thing I should do with this is throw it on an AR-10 and give it a good test there. So stick around if you like this. I think you'll appreciate some of the AR-10 content, and we'll see what else I can do with this 1-to-4 variable power prismatic optic. Thank you to Xerotex for sending it out. Thank you to Olight for sending out their light, Sunway Photo for the tripod, and Anechoic for the suppressor. I appreciate the partners to the channel, and I have a lot more coming on all those things pretty soon.